Welcome to Buy, Sell, Hold, the Sports Car Market Podcast. Market experts and car friends for over 30 years, Keith Martin and Mark Green have come together through their mutual love for collector cars. Keith and Mark will take you on a ride into the collector car market, talking with industry experts, helping you navigate your collector car journey so that you know when to make your own decisions to buy, sell, or hold.
Hello, I'm Mark Green from the Cars Yeah podcast.
And I'm Keith Martin from Sports Car Market magazine.
Welcome to Buy, Sell, Hold, what we like to call around here the essence of collecting. And this is show number 9. Keith, how is your day going?
Boy, my day is going fantastic. From start to finish, it's been 100 miles an hour, which is just the way I like it.
Okay, I have to ask, have you been going 100 miles an hour in that Volvo? Don't tell me you have been.
63.
Okay, there you go.
But it feels like 100.
Yeah, well, that's the fun thing about older cars like that. They always feel a lot faster, that's for sure. Well, today we're going to have a little bit of fun. Our guest today is from Bonhams. His name is Jakob. We'll introduce him in a few minutes, but I wanted to touch base with Keith on this whole idea of auctions, because auctions are very unique. And if you've never been to an auction, you absolutely have to go. Sports Car Market, of course, is the king of covering auctions. You send people all over the world. You go all over the world to cover auctions. And I'll tell you a quick story before I let you jump in here. I took my wife and my daughter, my son, to auctions during Car Week several years ago down at Pebble. My wife and daughter really aren't into cars. They kind of went begrudgingly, their eyes rolling. By the end of the evening, they did not want to go home. They were having so much fun. So what is it about auctions that are so much fun?
Well, Mark, I've always loved auctions. You know, I have a theatrical background. I went to Juilliard and I was a ballet dancer. Auctions are pure theatrical events that happen in live time. Right before you, you see two bidders, you see a seller. The bidder says, I'll pay $150,000, and the seller wants more, and the ring man asks you to raise your bid, and you have seconds to decide. You don't call a consultant, you don't look it up on Wikipedia. Right at that minute, you're at 150. Are you going to go to 160? I need to know right now. You're at 150. Do you want to go to 160? Sir, do you want the car? What a great thing to be. You're watching this guy, and I've been in that position where you think, all right, my limit is 55. I'm not going a dime over 55. Well, maybe not over 56. Well, maybe not over 50, and because you want the car, you want it so badly, and you're in a room full of people where buying the car is okay.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
You're in a room full of enablers.
Yes. Yeah, it's a drug. That's why they serve drinks at those events.
Well,
yeah.
You know what? I love it when the ring man comes up to you and says, sir, we just need another $1,000. You're at $150,000 on the car, right? He says, you've come this far with me, just another $1,000. Well, it's not another $1,000. It's $151,000. But he's your best friend.
Of course he is.
Keith, you want this car. You wouldn't be standing here if you didn't want this car. What's $1,000? Are you going to lose this car for $1,000? It's not $1,000, Mark. It's
$151,000. Yeah. Oh,
he's your best friend.
Yeah.
And if you decide not to bid, he's not your best friend anymore. He goes to the other guy.
Oh no, he drops you like a rock. Yeah, very quickly, a very hot rock for sure. Well, let me ask you this, Keith. I mean, you've been to many auctions. You've bought cars at auctions. You've sold cars at auctions. If you could offer our listeners one or two very important pieces of advice, if they're going to go to an auction and they see that car they can't live without, what do they need to be armed with to arrive safe and sound and get home safe and sound?
First of all, I break all my own rules, right?
You're the wrong guy to ask.
But what you should do, usually at every auction, there are around any given car, there are a bunch of people who know a lot about that kind of car. And get into a conversation with them. Say, do you know something about this car? Anything I should know about it? Know the history of it? I mean, I'm an expert on 57 or 8 to 67 Alphas, 4-cylinder Alphas. Those cars I know really well. When I step outside of that, I'm a fool. Pierre Hadari, who has been on your show, is a Mercedes expert. There was this 220S for sale on Craigslist. I sent him a picture. I said, Pierre, how awesome is this car? Original paint, manual transmission. And he said, Keith, if I met the owner of that car, I'd punch him in the face for all the crap he's done to him.
Well, there you go. There's the key. You got to have an expert.
Well, and I wouldn't have known. To me, it looked awesome.
Yeah.
If it was an alpha, I could have pointed out all the things that were wrong. You need to find somebody who lives and breathes that mark, and they'll be standing around that car because each car at an auction is a magnet.
Absolutely. Well, there you go, listeners. Go to an auction, enjoy an auction. If you want to get a precursor, you got to subscribe to Sports Car Market because they cover every auction. I think it's great, and I love the little write-ups. They're very short, succinct. They're very clear. I learn a lot from those, from all your folks you send all over the world to teach you things. One of the things I saw in the most recent Sports Car Market magazine was a hot rod that was for sale, kind of a sedanish hot rod. I forget the car what it was, but the report was saying, no wonder it didn't get your price. The owner locked it up and walked away. He didn't even stay around the car during the workup period so people could come up and ask him questions. The windows were tinted. They couldn't even see inside. So there you go. There's a couple tips for you listeners today. Well, we'll be right back. We're going to talk with Jakob. He's going to be here from Bonhams, Greisen. Jakob is an expert in his field. But first, a little special offer from Keith's team at Sports Car Market. We'll be right back. Mark Green here. I have subscribed to Sports Car Market magazine for decades. While I've dropped most of my other car magazine subscriptions, Sports Car Market is the one I'll never let go. It's a hold. Getting it monthly in my mailbox brings a huge smile to my face. Sports Car Market magazine is filled with great articles and market updates on collector car values. It's a virtual treasure trove of value. Even the advertisements are fun to watch. Boy, I've got a deal for you. You're going to get $10 off your print subscription simply by using the code BSH on their website. Go to sportscarmarket.com/BSH, use the code BSH, and get $10 off your print subscription of Sports Car Market magazine. That's a deal. That's code BSH at sportscarmarket.com/BSH and get $10 off your print subscription today. All right, Keith, we have a very special guest today, don't we?
We certainly do. It's my good friend Jakob Greisen from Bonhams.
Bonhams, yes. Jakob Greisen is the Bonhams Vice President, head of their U.S. motoring, and a collector motor car specialist. Bonhams is a British auction house that was founded way back in 1793. It is one of the world's oldest and largest auctioneers, known internationally for fine art, antiques, jewelry, automobilia, motorcycles, and of course, fine motor cars. The auctions are held in conjunction with some of the world's most renowned global motoring events, including the Quail, Goodwood Revival, and many, many others. Jakob holds membership in numerous motoring clubs and is an avid enthusiast and collector of motor cars and motorcycles. So, Jakob, welcome to Buy, Sell, Hold. How are you today, my friend?
Thank you both. I'm great. I'm excited to be on your show here.
And Jakob, we're glad to have you here on Buy, Sell, Hold. I'm going to ask you a question here. I'm going to ask you to describe the collector car market in one word. But, I'd like you to use a one word for the American collector car market. And since Bonhams is, headquartered in Europe, give us one word for the European collector car market. So if you were to pick one word for the American car market, what would it be and why? And one word for the European car market, and what would it be and why?
I would say that the market today is driven by collectors. So one word is tough, but collector driven. We see cars bought by true enthusiastic car collectors, of which there's probably more than there's ever been. If you look at all the events and the tours and the concours and there's such great attendance. And, collecting cars is really it's a broad hobby these days with people from all walks of life who participate. And, it's cool to collect cars. You open up Vogue, they're standing by an old E-Type. And I would say that that's really the core buying force these days is collectors. With Bonhams, we deal with them from all over the world that just have a passion for old cars, and they buy what they like, not as much with an investment sort of mindset, but they buy really, what they want to own and have in their garage.
Do you see much difference between the American market and the European market?
I would say generally a European or UK collector appreciates the sort of the history and the some nice patina and some history in an old car. It's like if you buy an old piece of furniture, if it's all restored and brand new, it's actually not as collectible in that market, or like a vintage watch, if it's had a new face or something like that, it's sort of tarnished a bit. And I would say in Europe, they tend to appreciate original cars, truly unrestored cars, more over restored cars, where in America, a perfectly restored car, which can of course have as much, good history and be as an authentic as example, just haven't been refurbished. But I would say that's the two sort of things that really split up the buyers there. And there are certainly some brands that are recently in Paris sold a wonderfully original Invicta, low chassis Invicta, which was sort of much like a W Bentley from the late 20s. That was Germans and British collectors that were buying that. There are certainly some cars that are more appealing to a European market, where there's other cars, like a Duesenberg or a good American classic that is, muscle cars are bought by mostly Americans. But then again, like in Sweden, they probably have one of the biggest muscle car markets. And we had an auction in Denmark where we sold a great collection of American classics, and a lot of it stayed in Europe, actually.
Jakob, today we're going to talk about 3 vehicles in your life, one you've purchased, one you've sold, and one that you would never let go of. Let's start with the memorable buy, the make and model of a vehicle that was very special to you, and you will always remember the purchase process. Was it simple, complicated, and how long did you chase this car for?
Well, since I'm in the auction business working for Bonhams, I will call the buy a consignment. I hope that's all right. A couple of years back, I went to Guatemala to consign a collection of Group B rally cars. I'm born in the 80s myself and have a great passion for the Group B cars. And there in Guatemala City, it was a well-known collector that had passed away, and I was working with the daughter and the widow, and we had 8 different Group B cars, many of them which this gentleman had bought brand new. So there was, photos of him at Fiat buying an S4 brand new, and he had a Sport Quattro, short wheelbase Sport Quattro, which he picked up in Ingolstadt at the factory, and getting that deal put together, and then getting all the cars out of Guatemala into containers where we had, full security with machine guns and you name it, out of the port and into Los Angeles, to then photograph them all and get them cataloged and everything, researched, and then ultimately we sold them for an auction house when buyer, especially seller and buyer, are happy with the results and everything. We call it a success, especially if we can make a little money in the meantime. And that was really a great success. And they were such original cars that they didn't have race history, but they were just kept original with all the original paperwork and accessories and things. And that was really a very memorable consignment to
How did you hear about these cars in the first place?
It was word of mouth. A mutual friend between the family and myself, said, can you go down there and look at them and evaluate them and sort of put a proposal together? It's a lot about relationships when you work in the collector car business as a general. And, even though Bonhams, we run a lot of ads, and I would say most people know who we are, it's still a lot about your reputation as the auction house and as the individual and sort of getting in front of those cars,
Is it a challenge when you're working with a family who perhaps they didn't have the passion for the cars as the collector did, but you're there to help make sure their estate gets the most? Obviously they can, because that's what they're doing, to liquidate. But is it a challenge at all working with families like that?
Oh, it certainly can be. There are many times a lot of emotions involved, and their significant other or their father or mother had collected these cars, and it's a lot about making sure everything is right and everything is how they would like it to unfold. And it can be very emotional for the sellers. That's for sure.
Jacob, you talked about the personal relationship, and Bonhams has been a sponsor of the SCM 1000 tour, and you've been on the events. And when I see you there and you're talking to other collectors, what I see is you're making personal relationships with all the other people who are there. They're seeing you that you're from Bonhams, but you're a car guy, and they're car people, and that gives you a way to have an immediate discussion.
Absolutely. I mean, we all share the same passion. I grew up with cars. I never even dreamt of working with collector cars. I went on I had a one-way trip to America and started from the bottom and met the right people. But it is truly a passion for me. And you're right. When you're out on rallies, and you always have something in common that you can talk about,
So, Jacob, let's talk about a significant vehicle that you've owned and sold. This is the sold car, the part of buy, sell, hold. A vehicle that was really special for you, but you decided to let it go. Talk about what that was, why you decided to let it go. Did you get the price you wanted? And looking back, are you a little sorry that you did let it go?
And again, as an auction guy, I hope it's okay that I will include a car that we sold at Bonhams. I've sold over 1,000 cars at auction over the years, or worked in the auction business for about 15 years. One that really comes to mind is last year at our Quail Lodge auction, we sold a 1952 Ferrari, a custom-bodied 340 America, coach work by Vignale, but with a lot of really neat details, really a truly one-off. And we sold that for the daughter of the gentleman who bought it in 1965. She had the car all these years. And the memorable sale of it was simply that we had so much interest in it and really strong bidding in the end between two European bidders. That was just where, the seller was extremely happy. The buyer really found something that he couldn't buy at any given auction. And that was a memorable sale. Everybody was happy, and it was a great result.
Do you think the family was sorry the car went away, got sold?
Absolutely. They were absolutely sorry, but it was time. It was time to move on. They weren't enjoying it as much as her father enjoyed it, and I think it was it was time to move on. And for that, this car sold for several $1 million, and you can also do a lot of other things with that kind of money.
Right.
Sure.
Jacob, we were going to just talk about next. Mark will ask you about a vehicle that you don't think a collector will ever let go of. All these collectors. Are there?
I have actually my own car, my MGA.
Yeah.
I will never let go. So I would love to mention that.
Okay.
Jacob, I love that MGA. When I was 16, I had a 58 MGA. I had long hair, and I decided I would drive my MGA from San Francisco to the Chicago National Convention.
That sounds like a great idea. How far did you get?
How far did you get?
Which leg?
Which leg? Yeah.
I had rebuilt the engine myself, reading a Chilton's manual. I got as far as Twin Falls, Idaho, before a rod went out through the side of the block, which that slowed me down.
That kind of, yeah.
And then Kremling, Colorado, the radiator or the water pump went bad and the fan went through the radiator. And then Roosevelt, Utah, the generator pulley shattered and destroyed itself. So we got halfway to Chicago. But I have always loved MGAs. I think they're so incredibly beautiful. The line of those, the fender line, and such a transition from the TF. So every time I see you in that car with this little Brooklyn's windscreens, it makes me happy. Tell us about that car in your life.
Well, let's do this because we're going to take a short break. I'm the guy that kind of keeps the policing here. We've got a sponsor for this show because, Keith, we got to make a few dollars here to make this keep going. But we also have a special offer from your team there at Sports Car Market. So let's take a short break. And before we do, I'm going to let you know. Well, no, I'll wait until we come back and tell you a little secret here, Jacob. We'll be right back. I've been subscribing to Sports Car Market magazine for decades, and it shows up like clockwork in my mailbox every month. But what about when I'm on the road? Did you know that digital subscriptions to Sports Car Market are just $2.50 a month when you sign up with the promo code DIGITAL50? That's less than a cup of coffee. You get 50% off regular price just for listening here to Buy, Sell, Hold. Plus, digital subscribers receive instant access to a year's worth of back issues and the exclusive Insider's Guide, including the 2020 Insider's Guide to the beautiful Amelia Island Concours, and all the spring auctions as well. No more boredom while sitting at the airport or on your flight. To get your Sports Car Market digital subscription at this discount, go to sportscarmarket.com/digital50. Your order will automatically get you the 50% off. What a deal. Go and sign up today at sportscarmarket.com/digital50. All right, we're back, and I promised you a little secret, Jacob. The first sports car I ever rode in when I was less than 1 year old was an MGA. So tell us about the vehicle that you'll never let go, and maybe share some great memories you have about that special MGA.
Definitely. Yeah, my MGA, I bought it with help from my parents in boxes, needing a full restoration in Denmark, where I grew up. We bought it in Washington State, actually. I was 14 years old. It arrived and needed everything, and I spent about 5 years restoring it. And that is really the car that sort of got me interested in collector cars. When I finished it, I moved to America and met a wonderful man, Chuck Spielman, who hired me to work in his collection. And eventually I shipped the car over here. So I have that car. I've had it for, some 25 years now. And
wow.
It's a wise man once told me, don't ever fall in love with an old car. It's not going to love you back. But I actually do. It does. I think it does love me back a little bit.
I'm going to take you back in time for a second here, Jacob. The first time you finished the restoration, you got in the car and you went for a drive. Do you remember that moment?
I remember it crystal clear. It was Easter, and it didn't have a windshield yet, but it was the first drive from my dad's garage up to our house. And I remember I was wearing these Elvis glasses. I'm a big Elvis fan. And that was, I probably worked all night to finish. I was putting the interior in, and the first drive, it had basically sat at the garage there for 5 years. And that I have a picture of it as well. It was very, very memorable. But since then, I've had many other great times with the car. My colleagues and I often take it on rallies. The SCM 1000, we've done both of them, and I hear this year it's British cars, so it will be a shoe-in, I guess. But we've taken it on the Copper State. We've taken it on the California Melee. One memorable thing was 1 year on the Copper State, the engine gave out on the morning of the second day, and with help from my colleagues, we located an engine at the local from a member of the local MG car club, and we swapped the engine overnight in the Ritz-Carlton parking lot there. That was fun.
That's incredible.
I really hope there wouldn't be an offer, ridiculously high where I would take it. I really don't think there will be. Thank God.
Yeah.
I think it means more to me than anybody else.
Of course.
So I've got a question for you, Jacob. Here's a car that you don't own. What would your idea of the perfect all-around collector car, not the most expensive, not the most exotic, but the one that you could really use that ticks all the boxes, and you'd say, I can hardly wait to get in this car and head out on the road? What car would that be?
For me, it's really the cars that excite me the most. They're sort of the mid to late 50s sports racing cars, right before a race car became a race car for a racetrack, and a street car was, for driving on the road. So a car like a 300S Maserati or a D-Type or something along those lines, that's really what I am most excited about. Those cars have what I think are the three sort of qualities that a collector car should have, or attributes: engineering, history, and aesthetics. They're very potent machines with independent suspension, big brakes, and beautiful that's the engineering, beautiful styling, often, Italian coach builders who just really got it right in those years. And history, these cars were made to run races at Le Mans and Sebring and things like that. And probably the most exciting thing to me is how they drive. I'm very fortunate. A good friend of mine has a 200 SI Maserati, which is the little brother of the 300S, and we drove that on the Mille Miglia in Italy last year, and we driven on the Colorado Grand several times. And it's a car that it beats you up, and you're exhausted, but you're never bored or tired. You're just like having you think you're Phil Hill or Sir Sterling Moss in that car, even though you aren't. But it's just the driving experience, and when you get out of the car, you fuel up and you look at it from the outside, it's really just a beautiful, great all-around machine.
So that's the personal side. Jakob, let's go back to the business side with Bonhams. How has the market today affected the way that Bonhams is doing business and approaching the collector car market?
I would say, as we started talking about early on in this interview, that it's really collectors that are buying the right cars. And we have to do our research. We really have to know what we're offering. It's important that you have the best of the best in any sort of category of car. Nobody really needs these old cars. They love them and they like them and they want them, but they want the right cars. And I think it's always important to remember, a collector car has to be collectible. The difference between a used car, an old used car of some sort and a collectible car, that difference is important to always remember. There should be a reason why you buy these old cars. And again, the difference between something that you're passionate about and is collectible versus something that isn't, it's a fine line,
Absolutely. Well, Jakob, we knew this would be fun with you, and the history behind Bonhams and what you guys do is absolutely fantastic. We always do a little pre-show chat, and today's, before you call in, and today's was all about auctions, the excitement in auctions. If you've never been to an auction, you really need to go because it's a whole different experience. As Keith put it, it's theater, and it's a very fun theater. Before we let you go today, I wondered if you would offer our listeners one little piece of wisdom or guidance when it comes to buying, holding, or selling a collector vehicle.
I would say, generally, you should buy what you like. Buy what excites you and what you can't live without. That's the cars you should buy. As we talked about earlier, if a collector car has the aesthetics, the engineering, and the history, and I would say generally the cars that sort of hold their value, in my opinion, will always be valuable is the cars that really made a mark on their generation or specific era they were built in. Could be a Mercer Raceabout from the mid-teens. It could be a Duesenberg. Could be a 300S Maserati like we talked about. Could be a McLaren F1. Could be a 240Z. Those cars that are so iconic that if you ask a non-car guy or girl walking down the street to show a photo, and they will nod. They have seen something like it. That's oftentimes the cars that will be remembered. Car collecting, it's a lot of romance, and it's certainly why is a Cal Spider worth so much or a 250 GTO? Well, it's the engineering, the history, and the aesthetics, but also a bit of romance and sort of what that car did on the era it was built. I think that's key elements, and I believe cars even from the first late 1800s will always be collectible. It's the same thing if you walk into the Louvre. Those pieces were made several centuries ago. I don't think they'll just be forgotten, in a new generation.
What's the best way for our listeners to learn more about Bonhams and what you do?
Well, we have 5 annual collector car auctions and 2 collector car motorcycle auctions in the U.S. alone. Worldwide, we have about 18. Bonhams.com/motors, the site where you can see all the different cars we're offering and upcoming auctions and all of that. Personally, I'm on Instagram, Jakob Greisen. I think it's just at Jakob Greisen. I believe that's it.
I'll remind our listeners there, you can find all these great links that Jakob has shared with us today. I would encourage you, if you've never been to the website, Bonhams, you're going to have a lot of fun there, and pour yourself a long drink because you're going to be there a while. Not only their motor cars department there, but all the other things that Bonham sells. It's fascinating. You learn so much about history. And for those of you listeners who missed my talk with Jakob on Cars Yeah, Jakob, you were a guest back July of 2016, I think. Guest number 552 to be exact. So you can find that on the Cars Yeah website. Jakob, thanks for taking some time out of today to talk with us about the market, about buying, selling, and holding. This has been great fun.
Same here. I really appreciate having me on the show, and thank you to you, Mark, and to you, Keith.
And Jakob, I look forward to seeing you in the near future.
I hope so. Amelia Island.
There you go.
That's right.
Absolutely. Take care. Good night.
Good night.
Hey, Mark Green here. If you love the Buy, Sell, Hold podcast, you'll want to listen to my Cars Yeah podcast, where over 5 years, I've interviewed over 1,475 inspiring automotive enthusiasts. You'll have free access to my guest shows 5 days a week. These are amazing people who share their world around cars, trucks, and motorcycles. I take a deep dive into their businesses, and they share with you how they've wrapped their passion for vehicles into their lives. Plus, go to the carsyeah.com website and hit the free book button, and I'll email you my free Filler Up book. It's an ebook filled with beautiful fuel filler fun and inspiring quotes from my past guests. Once subscribed, you'll get my weekly blog as well. You can find all the Cars Yeah shows on carsyeah.com or on any mobile device using your podcast app. Just search for Cars Yeah Podcast and subscribe today. That way you'll get both Buy, Sell, Hold with Keith and me and the Cars Yeah Podcast delivered right to your mobile device or your computer. Thanks for listening.
We hope to have shed some light today on the collector car market. You can listen to all the Buy, Sell, Hold podcasts at sportscarmarket.com and carsyeah.com. You'll find hundreds of inspiring automotive enthusiasts on the Cars Yeah website as well. Be sure to log into sportscarmarket.com and subscribe to Keith's SCM weekly newsletter. You'll find digital issues, insider event guides, and price guides, along with our Platinum database, column profiles, classifieds, and many other resources. Join Keith and Mark next week to hear from another automotive industry leader who will help you determine when to buy, sell, or hold.